Okay, so this video is an introduction to Google Classrooms and how to set it up and the basics of how some of it works. So first of all, to get to Google Classrooms, if you go to your email, go on the top right, those 9 dots, click on those 9 dots, come down here to Classroom. That'll open up the Google Classroom homepage, landing page, whatever you want to call it. And you can see I have my 3 classes set up here for pre-algebra, algebra 1, algebra 2. And those, in my mind, since I'm a visual learner, those are the colors associated with those classes. So that helps me out. Everything with algebra 1 is red because the book is red. Everything with my pre-algebra is purple because the book is purple. Algebra 2, same thing. It's like a greenish blue. But you can kind of design those however you want to, but that's not the purpose of this video. Now, to add your classes, if you want to manually add every student yourself, you can absolutely do that. I'm going to show you some other options as well. So you would want to create a class. Now, another option is if you already have your class created and you're wanting students to join it on their own, what you would do is you would send them this class code. You would email them this class code, use RenWeb, send it to everybody, and say, hey, this is your class code for this class. Go to Google Classroom and join this class. So what they would do, coming back here, they would have the same options in Google Classroom, and in the top, instead of create class, they would actually, I don't think that they can create one, they would join that class, and it would ask them to put in that class code. All right, but let's create the class first. You're going to class name, next stuff. You can input the section, the subject, room number, but really all you need is that class name. That's the only thing that's required. We're going to create that. Now, the next thing, once you create it, what you're going to want to do is to start adding students. Up at the top, you can see people, and you can add your students directly from there. Once you start typing their email, it may or may not populate depending on if you've emailed that person in the past. So you can type in their emails to invite them that way. So like if I want to invite this guy right here, and I would send an invite, but I'm not going to. Okay, so you can invite them that way, or you can just email them all and give them this code and have them go ahead and join the class themselves. All right, so once these are populated, you have your class, make sure everybody's in there, and you want to start assigning work. You'll go up to classwork. Okay, now there are different assignments you can create. Probably the most common one would be the assignments. Now, depending on what you're wanting to do, the assignment could be a Google Doc. So since all of mine are going to be handwritten, so for math, they're going to have to print it out. And then once they're done with that assignment, they would then upload it back onto Drive for me to grade and look at. Okay, so the majority of what I use is assignments. If you do quiz, that'll automatically populate a form as a quiz like I've showed you before. If you're just asking a question, I haven't used this, but it'll just one question and then they'd be able to put their answer, short answer or multiple choice, however you want to do it. If you just want to assign a single question. If you want to assign multiple questions, I would recommend creating a form for that. And then if you're attaching that form, so let me show you real quick. You're creating an assignment, right? So let's say chapter 7 questions. Now, you could create one right here in it, or if you have the form or document that you want them to have. So let's say you have a document that you want them to be able to fill out. Okay, so what you're going to do is you have that document in Drive. If you don't, you would just go ahead and create it as you're creating that assignment. But let's say you have that in the drive. We will go to My Drive. Okay. And let's say Algebra 1. Let's say this is a document that I want all of my students to be able to type on and then submit when they're done. Okay, I don't want them to print it out. I just want them to type on their own, and then when they're done, they can hit submit and all of that. So over here at the right, you'll have a couple of options. Students can view file. That's for me. Like if I want them just to look at it, to be able to print it out and do nothing else with that, you want students can view. If you want students can edit file, that'd be like if you want everybody to be able to edit the same file for whatever reason, if you're doing like a group thing and everybody's editing each other's work, or you can make a copy for each student. So that is if you want every student to have their own copy and put their own answers in there, then that third one, make a copy for each student, is what you're going to want to do. If you just want them to be able to print it out and view it, it's the first one. If you want a shared file where everybody's editing the same thing, that's the second one. Okay? Now, we have that, and whatever one you want, so copy for each student. And then over here, before we assign it, right, you can assign it to specific students. Since I don't have any students in here, nothing else is populated, but all of your students would be in here. You can make it for however many points it's worth. So let's say this is a 35-point assignment. Also, you can make it for if it's ungraded too. If there's a due date, you want to check on that due date because there's on their calendar, it'll actually populate in their calendar on that day that it's due, right? So if you want this due by Friday the 10th, and you can even put a time because they can still submit it. So let's say you want that done by 8 a.m. They can still submit it. It's just, it'll be tagged as, hey, this was submitted late. Okay, and you can, whatever your policy is, 10% off, 20% off, whatever that is. And then topics would be if this is a specific chapter or units, right? So if I create a topic here, if I've done it, already created one in the past, it'll already be there. All right, so we'll just do rocks. If there's a rubric, you can do that. And then lastly, up here, you can assign now, you can schedule it. So if you don't want them to be able to see this or even know that it's assigned until Wednesday, right? Like, okay, we're going to talk about this on Wednesday, and then that's when I want them to be able to see it. So that's when you're going to schedule it to populate for them in the class itself. Okay, and you can see when it comes back under my rocks unit, I have my chapter 7 questions right there. Okay, and it's not dark, it's light because it's not populated yet. Okay, this is just a quick overview. Next week, I'm going to have a couple times. If you have more questions, going to do webinars. You can jump in, ask your questions. I'm going to go more thoroughly into assigning and what it looks like when you get them back. But right now, my goal for this video is that everybody can set it up, add students either by having them add themselves or you add them yourself, creating classes, and you can have multiple classes. And the great thing on the students' behalf is on their calendar, all of the work that they'll need to do will populate for them so they won't have to think too much about it. And they can look at specific classes if they're focusing on just one of those classes. Okay, so create your class. Next week, I'm going to send out, let you know when I'm going to be available to do some more webinars on Google Classrooms. Thank you.